wish to stop.
Antarctica. The seventh continent of the world. Yet, it's the least most populated continent in the entire world. For basically the majority of its history, the continent was ruled by penguins, seals, whale, dolphins, and so on. No humans were on this continent, for basically its entire history. Today, there is approximately 5,000 people during the summer months, while during winter months, only 1,000 people. So how did we even find this barren frozen wasteland? Ancient Greek thinkers proposed a southern land to balance the world, a concept known as terra australis incognita, unknown southern land. The British were really curious if this continent did exist. They call in Captain Cook, a legendary navigator who sails around the real Terra or Alice in a circle without seeing it, because of the fog. Then he rediscovers a bunch of islands, and decides to reclaim them for Britain. When he returns home, he tells everyone that Terra Australis is way more south, and it's a cold desolate wasteland. He did mention that there were seals. Many people saw seal fur as an opportunity to earn a lot of money. Everyone starts sailing into the Falkland Islands to find seals, and basically go on a murder rampage. Hunters easily trapped animals on beaches, lancing them through the heart or shooting them, then removing their blubber and leaving their bodies. These killings nearly led to the extinction of seals' populations. By the 1800s, seal hunting would start to decline, due to the overhunting, and mass murder of seals. They then decide to change the name of this mystery continent to Antarctica, since it's on the opposite side of the Arctic. In 1819, Russia sent Bellingshausen south to find and claim the real Antarctica. He discovers some new land, but Bellingshausen did not initially realize he had discovered a new continent, when he first sighted the icy coast of Antarctica in January 1820. Instead, he and his crew likely believed they were seeing massive ice shelves or ice mountains that were either part of the ice field or, at best, a main of ice rather than solid land. For most of the rest of the century, no one stepped foot in this continent. On January 24, 1895, a team of Norwegians and one New Zealander were able to land on Antarctica. Several others would soon follow. During what's known as the heroic age of Antarctic exploration of the late 1800s/early 1900s, Belgium, the United Kingdom, Germany, Sweden, France, Japan, Norway, Australia, and New Zealand all led expeditions on the continent. On August 16, 1897, the multinational crew of Belgium became trapped in ice for over a year, 1898 to 1899, surviving the first unplanned Antarctic winter. Then in 1911, Norway and the UK decided to race to see who could walk across the entire Antarctic continent. Norway's expedition, led by Roald Amundsen, was carefully planned and benefited from experience with polar travel, using skis, sled dogs, and efficient supply strategies that made their journey relatively smooth, despite the extreme cold. In contrast, the British team under Robert Falcon Scott faced harsher setbacks, including poor weather, difficult terrain, and less effective transport methods, which slowed their progress. Instead of the British using sled dogs, they used Siberian ponies, because why not? On December 14, 1911, Norway made history. They would win the race, and the British would arrive over a month later on January 17, 1912. The British faced severe weather, starvation, scurvy, and frozen fuel, dying about 11 miles from a supply depot returning back. Now, fishermen being able to process whales entirely at sea, they started basically, committing tax fraud. Then the newly formed League of Nations says, please stop, don't hurt the whales, they may become endangered, just like the seals, and we need to preserve the ecosystem. Then all these fishermen are like, shut up League of Nations. Argentina was the first to send settlers to be there for longer periods way back in 1904. It set up a small base on one of the South Orkney Islands after purchasing a meteorological observatory, even though the United Kingdom had claimed that area. In 1928, Hubert Wilkins and Ben Nielsen made the first successful flight to Antarctica. 7 years later, Lincoln Ellsworth and Herbert Halleck Kenyon made the first successful flight across the entire continent. In January to February 1939, Nazi Germany expedition led by Captain Alfred Richer. This is to claim part of Queen Maud Land, named New Swabia, to establish a whaling station to produce whale oil, and to survey the area via airplane. Naud's claim was also in part of what Norway was claiming, but in less than 2 years, Germany would invade Norway and conquer Norway after 2 months of fighting. Germany would eventually lose World War II in 1945, and lose that land in Antarctica. In 1952, An Argentine team at Esperanza base fired machine guns over the heads of a British Antarctic survey team unloading supplies from a ship. The Argentines later apologized, saying there had been a misunderstanding. But that's about as tense as it got, because they didn't want to start a war over this. After the war, the United States started to wipe the continent, and made large-scale expeditions, most famous of which being called Operation High Jump, which worried the rest of the claimants. The Americans began these exercises to help them if they wanted any land for themselves, and also it acted as practice. For what? Antarctic conditions were similar to Arctic ones, and if the US ever went to war with the Soviet Union, it was believed that places like Greenland would they be fought over. The addition of one of the world's superpowers meant that the rest of the claimants got a bit nervous, and so there was a concerted effort to negotiate a treaty. This wasn't just to stop the United States from grabbing it all, but to prevent the USSR and Japan from making their own claims. So the international treaty, the Antarctic Treaty, was signed by Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, South Africa, Norway, the Soviet Union, United States, and United Kingdom on December 1, 1959. It would do several things. First, it banned any new claimants on the continent with the exception of the USA and the USSR, who could if they wanted to in the future. Second, the other countries that did have their claims didn't have to renounce their claims. Third, no one technically owns Antarctica, and military bases and nuclear testing is banned in Antarctica. Fourth, the treaty made Antarctica a scientific haven, whereby research would be the primary interaction that the rest of the world had there, and what this did was put a stop to any further claims. Other countries would then begin building even more bases to do more science research in Antarctica. Antarctica also decides to pass new rules to preserve wildlife, like the conservation of Arctic seals on June 1, 1972. In 1978, Argentina ships a pregnant woman to Antarctica and her son, Emilio, becomes the first human baby born on Antarctica on January 7, 1978. And there you have it, a continent that was avoided from ever having a war, a continent that didn't have humans for most of its history, and when the threat of conflict came to this continent, instead of fighting a war, in a rare occasion, countries actually decided to choose peace over war, and today Antarctica is a scientific hub continent. The end.